Hi there, Smart Drivers. Rick with Smart Drive Test, talking to you today about basic rules for keeping a logbook in the United States of America. I would like to thank Eugene Ryazanov, and I would like to thank Hobble Hill for pointing out the erroneous information in the original video and allowing me to bring you the best information possible. So, without further ado, the basic information for keeping a logbook in the United States of America. You have to drive and work within a 14-hour window. You're allowed to drive a maximum of 11 hours, and you have to have a 10 consecutive hour break off in the United States of America as well. During your work day from the last off-duty sleeper berth period of your 10 consecutive hours, you have to have a half-hour break at the 8-hour mark. So for example, if you come on duty at 8 o'clock in the morning, you have to have a break at or before 4 o'clock in the afternoon. So we're going to give you more details about this. Stick around. We'll be right back with that information. Smart Drivers, Rick with Smart Drive Test, talking to you today about the basic rules of keeping a logbook in the United States. This is for CDL drivers, commercial drivers who are operating a truck or bus in the United States of America. As an American driver or a Canadian operating into the US, running across the border, you need to know the American rules because the hours that you can drive are less than what they are in Canada, and the off-duty time, the consecutive off-duty time, is more. So in the United States, you have to have your workday within a 14-hour window. Not that kind of window. A 14-hour window, so from the time that you start in the morning until the time that you take your 10 consecutive hours off duty has to be 14 hours. So if you start at 8 o'clock in the morning, you have to finish by 10 o'clock at night. You cannot drive after 10 o'clock at night. You can work after that, but you can't drive. So your 14-hour window has to be your 11 hours of driving time. You're allowed a maximum of 11 hours of driving time in the United States of America. And at the 8-hour mark from your last off-duty time, you have to take a 30-minute break. So for example, if you start driving at 8 o'clock in the morning, you have to take a 30-minute break at or before 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And as well, you have to have 10 consecutive hours off-duty. So for example, if you are off duty at 8 o'clock at night, you cannot drive again until 6 a.m. the next morning. So you have to have 10 hours off duty consecutive. And if you're running sleeper berth, you can run 70 hours in 8 days in the United States. That is your work cycle. Now, the two lines on your logbook that make up the work cycle are lines 3 and 4, which are your driving time and your on-duty not driving. So know your work cycle as well. If you're running a day cab in the United States, most of the time the company is not going to be running 24/7. And if the company's not running 24/7, then you're running 60 hours in 7 days. So those are the basic rules for logbooks in the United States of America, and make sure that you know the basic rules before you start applying the exemptions, those other rules that apply to logbooks in the United States, because there are some exemptions and there are some differences between map miles and air miles. And I would get the fundamentals of logbooks underneath your belt before you start applying those exemptions. As well, if you're keeping an electronic logbook, as you will most likely in this day and age, because it's very unlikely that most companies are running paper log. It's just too much work for the administration, so they're running electronic logs. Know as well that you need to keep supporting documentation. If you get pulled into the weigh scale, the DOT, the CVSE, the MTO in Ontario and other jurisdictions, whoever are the diesel bears, as we call them in the trucking industry, are going to be looking at supporting documentation, that the supporting documentation supports what you have put down on your log sheet, whether it's an electronic log sheet or whether that's a paper log sheet. So for example, if you got fuel at 10 o'clock in the morning, that receipt for fuel has a date and time stamp on it, and that date and time stamp on it on the fuel receipt also has to match up on your logbook. So make sure that you are on duty not driving, line 4, and that you put fuel in the truck, and that's the notation that you put in your logbook 10 o'clock in the morning if you have a fuel receipt that also has that. So if you're running logbooks, make sure that your supporting documentation lines up with what's on your logbook and lines up exactly. And on that note, I did have a CVSE officer here in the province of British Columbia who said that he also liked to see receipts for cups of coffee. I mean, you don't have to give that to the diesel bears, but it does support that your logbook is in fact a true and filled out to the best of your ability, because it is a legal document, and if there is a crash, they will use your logbook to investigate that crash. So make sure that you fill it out to the best of your ability. As well, if you're running for a company that doesn't operate 24/7, you can only run 60 hours in 7 days. And if you're working for a company that does in fact operate 24/7, you can operate 70 hours in 8 days. And as well, you have to hand your logbooks in the United States into your company every 13 days. Now, just on that note of handing in log sheets, most companies, just for purposes of logistics and getting paid and accounting and those types of things, they want you to hand your paperwork in at the end of every trip. So you'll do that, especially for the bigger companies, to get paid and you get paid, and you know, the cash flow and whatnot. So, but legally you have to hand your log sheets into the company every 13 days. As well, for whatever cycle that you're operating on, you have to have that number of log sheets in the vehicle with you. So if you're running 60 hours in 7 days, you have to have 7 days of log sheets in the truck with you or the bus. And if you're running 70 hours in 8 days, you have to have 8 days of log sheets in the vehicle. Most log sheets, if you're running a paper log sheet, the booklets come with 31 days, so most drivers just keep the month with them. But most of you, as I said before, will be running electronic logbooks, so you're going to have the required number of days with you in the vehicle. You only have to keep the supporting documentation for the current trip that you're on. You don't have to have supporting documentation for previous trips. Supporting documentation, if they want it for previous trips, they're going to go back to the company and request that from the company. So those are the basic rules in the United States. Quick review of basic logbook rules in the United States of America. You're allowed to drive a maximum of 11 hours in your 14-hour window. So your workday has to occur within a 14-hour window. So therefore, if you start working at 8 o'clock in the morning, you can't drive after 10 o'clock at night. Let me tell you, you probably don't want to drive anyway, because you're going to be pretty beat up. As well, during coming on duty, 8 hours of working, you have to take a break from your last on-duty cycle. So therefore, if you start working at 8 o'clock in the morning, you have to take a 30-minute break at or before the 4 o'clock in the afternoon. As well, you have to have 10 consecutive hours off duty between work cycles. So you have a work period, 10 consecutive hours off duty, another work period, 10 consecutive hours off duty, and so on and so forth. There are 2 work cycles in the United States of America, and line 3 and line 4, driving and on duty not driving, make up the number of hours that you use to calculate your work cycle. So the 2 work cycles are 60 hours in 7 days, which is a company that doesn't operate 24/7. Which is not likely, but 60 hours in 7 days if you're running a day cab, and the other work cycle is 70 hours in 8 days if your company runs 24/7. And most of the time, I'm just going to tell you this, that drivers get into trouble because they violate the work cycle. So keep track of that, and there's another video up here on the channel. Have a look at that and figure out how to calculate a work cycle if you're not using an electronic log and are using log sheets. As well, you got to hand in log sheets every 13 days minimum to your company. Most companies will want them after every trip, just for purposes of accounting and getting paid and those sorts of things. And finally, you only have to keep supporting documentation in the vehicle for the current trip. If they want the supporting documentation, they'll go to your company to get that. So those are the basic rules in the United States. Question for my smart drivers: have you ever had a logbook violation in the United States? What was that logbook violation for? Leave a comment down in the comment section there. All of that helps out the new drivers working towards getting their CDL license and starting a career as a truck or bus driver. I'm Rick with Smart Drive Test. Thanks very much for watching. If you like what you see here, share, subscribe, leave a comment down in the comment section. As well, hit that thumbs up button. Check out all the videos here on the channel if you're working towards getting your license or starting a career as a truck or bus driver. Lots of great information here. As well, head over to my website. Lots of great information over there, and you can purchase the American Logbook course over there. There's also a free logbook course that you can try out, and if you like that, then you can purchase the full course. The full course has all the videos, and it has multiple choice questions and 2 great exercises that will help you to learn how to fill out a log sheet correctly. Thanks again for watching. Good luck in your road test, and remember, pick the best answer, not necessarily the right answer. Have a great day. Bye now. If you don't secure the vehicle with the parking brakes before you